Hi everyone, Scrappy Cathy here with what is arguably a very personal project, but I can't be the only one who has boxes and boxes or baskets or drawers filled with old print photos. And I've had mine, a few years back, I kind of went through the first batch of them, or a batch of them, and pulled out everything that was scrappable and scrapped it. And then I was left with, and I have those kind of up at the top of a closet where they're safe and kind of climate controlled and fairly well labeled. And it worked for the kinds of photos that I had in there, which were fairly recent ones. I'd grouped all the photos of Katie when she was a baby and things like that. So that having been done, I had then 12 boxes left. And I went through, and this had to be about 5 or 6 years ago, I went through and filled out the labels, in some cases, in this case, with just the year. And in some cases, I actually wrote down something about, like this one says, the PI trip to California with Mary and Gerald and our first Hawaii trip to Maui. And I have found in looking through this box that what this says isn't necessarily true. And I have some things stuck in the sides and some things back at the back, which are photos that I got in letters from my son when he was in the service. And I even have a letter in here, and there are a whole bunch of photos that I don't care about, but which do have meaning to him. So he took, well, I don't need to tell you about that. Anyway, this to me was a daunting project. And I kind of flipped through and I found some, oh, wow, I haven't seen that. I haven't seen that shirt, nor this photo of that shirt. And that's a good enough photo to use as it is. So I kind of stuck it upended like that. And I found some others. I didn't even know we had photos of Sam and Dave, which were our hamsters. And then I, found a picture on that same roll, must have been a picture of John. And so I've got these photos. So, oh, those are great. And then this was a landscaping project that we did. So I stuck those up. And before too long, I had some things sticking up and they didn't make very much sense. And then I got to this group of photos and there were a few in here. I love them all, but they're really bad photos. They've deteriorated. And I will tell you that the ones that I sent off to be developed from the cheapest developer, this is what they look like in 40 years. It's sad. They will not last. And I've got some others like this that were developed. I can tell by the kind of photo. These were developed at the mall at one of the photo shops that there used to be 10 of in each mall. And it was, these are perfectly good. The composition of the photos leaves a little to be desired, but they're good enough to scrap as they are. So I kind of developed something of a very simple process that is way too simplified to cover everything I'm going to hit. But if I'm going to handle this box, in other words, scrap everything out of it, or at least scan and have available for scrapping everything that is worth scrapping, and maybe some notes taken and some additional documentation written on these things for others that don't, I I'm really going to have to go about it in a more systematic way. Let me just kind of say that. So I kind of wrote a little bit of a workflow. And I said, the first one is obvious, work with one group at a time. I can't just look at the whole box. So there's this group right here. And for example, so I'm saying if scrappable, place upended, and then if the photo quality is good, scan it and scrap the original. Otherwise, scan and replace the original. So that doesn't work like within this group. There are some photos of James's old room, of him napping, of him in a Halloween costume at his daycare center, and all of the other kids. Obviously, I don't care, and he doesn't remember any of these kids. There's this one of him napping, and Freddie was napping with him. There's his. So what I'm going to do is in here, and none of these is good enough to scrap as it is. I'm going to have to, within this group, pick out the ones, and nearly every photo, except those of the kids in his daycare that he doesn't remember and that I don't, none of those are, you know, like a lot of these are good to scrap. But I will put this up saying there's something in here that's good enough to scrap, and then I would probably go on group by group. But let's just say from this group, this is a Christmas tree that was in our apartment back after his dad and I were divorced and before I met John. And these photos are of his room, and I had zero money in those days, and I decorated everything with his artwork and posters, movie posters that meant a lot to him, like Star Wars. And I don't know, I love these photos of him napping, so I'm saying those are scrappable. I don't know this kid, so this kid kind of stays. I'm not going to throw away the photo, not going to throw that one away, not going to throw that one away. This one has James and a friend of his, so I will scrap that one. Not going to throw any of these away. I remember that kid. In those days, on Friday nights, I used to, after work at my day job, I would go to the daycare center where he stayed, and I would volunteer to take care of the kids. I had to get certified and all those things, but the reason I volunteered was so that on some Friday nights when I wanted to go out, I could leave James there free of charge. And this kid was a terror. He was a kid. And this is a photo of James opening a Christmas present early before he went to his dad's. And I know he was on his way to his dad's because he had that plaid shirt on because his dad had given him that shirt and he loved wearing it when he went to his dad's. And then this is him in his Dracula costume. I believe this was his best friend, Erica, who later was she was in our wedding, in John's and my wedding. James's room. This is one that's is poorly exposed, but it's probably one of my favorites of him, and I can probably filter that to get a decent photo. And so I'm going to try and work with these. And I'm going to put these back in, saying they've already been handled. I've looked at them, and I'm not going to do anything with them. These pictures of the cats, I have already scanned every photo in here. None of the photos was good enough to use on its own, but I've scanned all of these and they are handled. So that's there. So that's kind of how I'm going to do this. I've done those first two groups and then I've got another one to look at. And as I'm going along, I'm going to keep a piece of paper like this, maybe the back side of this, and make a list of events and photos and whether scrapped or not, and just some notes about the occasion and so forth, just so that the contents of the box are understood. I'm going to print it up on acid-free paper and slide it in. I'll size it or fold it so that I can put it inside the box or maybe up top of the box and then put the box away. So, and I have promised, for example, to scan all of these photos so there's a good copy of them for James, and I will scan them and keep them. I'll send him the electronic copies, and I'm going to give him the hard copies. But there are a couple things I wanted to scrap. These two are photos of his room in the barracks when he was in the service, and it shows there's he had a framed picture of him and me, and he had all kinds of other things, and he had South Park on TV, and we had sent him that, we'd sent him a DVD or a CD or a tape, I guess, of that. We had taped it. John loved that show. So this is that Mickey Mouse comforter that he had in the barracks, in the service, the same one that he was sleeping in those napping photos. So I want to scrap that story. So I have all of this already kind of at the back. So I'm not going to go through all this, but I've had a couple people ask, how are you going to tackle that? So that's kind of how I'm going to tackle it. And as you can see, the box has, it has taken a while for me to kind of, look at these. It took a while for me to look at those, and that's kind of real-time analysis there. So it's not going to be an easy project. So what I really need to do is get it in my head that for this year, most of my layouts need to be with these legacy photos, I guess is a good term. And I need to stop taking the easy route so often and going back to find electronic photos. It's easy to say, "Ooh, where's a picture of Katie and Allie when they were acting dramatic," and do that. I need to find something in here that looks dramatic, that would go with a llama drama kind of page that I want to do. So that's the short story. During this project, I'm going to tag videos and posts with 12 Box Project whenever I use a photo from my box. And at the end of the month, I'll do a kind of a layout share or something showing, what I did, and I'll show the box and the list and maybe tell you whether I really made it all the way through or whether there's more work to do. And I'm hoping that it's the former rather than the latter. So thank you for watching, and I realize this is maybe not the most glamorous aspect of scrapping, and yet I think it's way more important than I have than what I've paid to it. It's a more important project. It's too important to have left this go this long. These are 1980 to 87 for example. It's, I've had a lot of years that I could have tackled these. And so I guess I should be happy that they're at least somewhat arranged in order. I'm suspecting as I get to some of the later boxes, they're going to be a lot fewer labels and going to be in a lot worse shape. But this is the one I'm dealing with for January. And the very next thing that I'm going to do, scrap-wise, is I'm going back. A year ago, I took a class, a mini book or mini album and a layout class for the Fernwood collection from Vicki Boutin. And something came up and I didn't finish it. I didn't even get very far. I do have things clipped together for the different pages. And so I'm going to make all of the layouts, the layouts, Vicki Boutin layouts, and every single one thing good about Vicki's layout plans is they're multi-photo. I'm going to be scrapping from here. Every single one of these pages is going to have something from this box. So those are the things that you'll see next for the 12 box project. So thank you for watching, and let me know what you think. If you have any ideas as to how I can get through this more efficiently, or some ideas that you've used, or let me know if you have any questions, if your 12 box project is organized differently, if I have any ideas. I'm happy to exchange on that, but I don't want to overwork it. So thanks for watching. Bye.